Matthew 24. Matthew 24:15. When you shall see the abomination of desolation. Because the destruction of the temple and city of Jerusalem, together with the overthrow of the whole Jewish government, was, as we have already said, a thing incredible, and because it might be thought strange, that the disciples could not be saved without being torn from that nation, to which had been committed the adoption and the covenant, Romans 9-4, of eternal salvation, Christ confirms both by the testimony of Daniel as if he had said, that you may not be too strongly attached to the temple and to the ceremonies of the law. God has limited them to a fixed time, and has long ago declared, that when the Redeemer should come, sacrifices would cease, and that it may not give you uneasiness to be cut off from your own nation. God has also forewarned his people, that in due time it would be rejected. Such a prediction was not only well adapted for removing ground of offense, but likewise for animating the minds of the godly, that amidst the sorest calamities, knowing that God was looking upon them, and was taking care of their salvation, they might betake themselves to the sacred anchor, where, amidst the most dreadful heavings of the billows, their condition would be firm and secure. But before I proceed farther, I must examine the passage which is quoted by Christ. Those commentators are, I think, mistaken, who think that this quotation is made from the 9th chapter of the book of Daniel, for there we do not literally find the words, abomination, of desolation, and it is certain that the angel does not there speak of the final destruction which Christ now mentions, but of the temporary dispersion which was brought about by the tyranny of Antiochus. But in the 12th chapter the angel predicts what is called the final abrogation of the services of the law, which was to take place at the coming of Christ. For, after having exhorted believers to unshaken constancy, he fixes absolutely the time both of the ruin and of the restoration. From the time, says he, that the daily sacrifices shall be taken away, and the abomination of desolation set up, there will be 1,290 days. Blessed is he who shall wait till he come to the 1,335 days, Daniel 12:11, 12. I am aware that this passage is tortured in a variety of ways on account of its obscurity, but I consider the natural meaning of it to be, that the angel declares that, after the temple has been once purified from the pollutions and idols of Antiochus, another period will arrive when it will be exposed to a new profanation, and when all its sacredness and majesty will be forever lost. And as that message was sad and melancholy, he again recalls the prophet to 1 year, and 2 years, and 6 months. These words denote both the duration and the close of the calamities, for, in an interrupted succession of calamities, the course of 1 year appears to us very long, but when that space of time is doubled, the distress is greatly increased. The Spirit therefore exhorts believers to prepare themselves for the exercise of patience, not only for a single year, that is, for a long period, but to lay their account with enduring tribulations through an uninterrupted succession of many ages. There is no small consolation also in the phrase, half a time, Daniel 12-7, for though the tribulations be of long continuance, yet the Spirit shows that they will not be perpetual. And, indeed, he had formerly used this form of expression, the calamity of the church shall last through a time, times, and half a time, Daniel 7:25, but now he reckons the period of 3 years and 6 months by days, that believers may be more and more hardened by a very long continuance of calamities, for it is customary with men in adversity to compute time, not by years or months, but by days, a single day being, in their estimation, equal to a year. 142, he says that those will be happy who bear up to the end of that period, that is, who with invincible patience persevere to the end. Now Christ selects only what suited his purpose, namely, that the termination of sacrifices was at hand, and that the abomination, which was the sign of the final desolation, would be placed in the temple. But as the Jews were too strongly attached to their present condition, and therefore paid little attention to the prophecies which foretold the abolition of it, Christ, as if endeavoring to gain their ear, bids them read attentively that passage, where they would learn that what appeared to them difficult to be believed was plainly declared by the prophets. Abomination means profanation, for this word denotes uncleanness, which corrupts or overturns the pure worship of God. It is called desolation, because it drew along with it the destruction of the temple and of the government, as he had formerly said, Daniel 9:27, that the pollution introduced by Antiochus was, as it were, the standard of temporary desolation, for such I conceive to be the meaning of the wing, or, spreading out. It is a mistake to suppose that this expression denotes the siege of Jerusalem, and the mistake receives no countenance from the words of Luke, who did not intend to say the same thing, but something quite different. For that city having been formerly delivered, when it appeared to be in the midst of destruction, lest believers should expect something of the same kind in future, Christ declares that, as soon as it would be surrounded by armies, it was utterly ruined, because it was wholly deprived of divine assistance. The meaning therefore is, that the issue of the war will not be doubtful, because that city is devoted to destruction, which it will not be able to escape any more than to rescind a decree of heaven. Accordingly, Luke shortly afterwards adds, that Jerusalem will be trodden down by the Gentiles, a mode of expression which denotes utter ruin. But as it might appear to be strange that the holy city should be thus given up to the Gentiles, to do with it as they pleased, he adds a consolation, that it was only for a time that so much liberty was allowed to the Gentiles, till their iniquity was ripe, and the vengeance which had been reserved for them was fully displayed. Matthew 24:16. Then let them who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Having shown by the testimony of the prophet that, when the temple had been profaned, the services of the law would soon afterwards be abolished, he adds, that fearful and appalling calamities will soon overtake the whole of Judea, so that there will be nothing more desirable than to withdraw a distance from it, and, at the same time, he states that they will be so sudden, that time will scarcely be time allowed for the most rapid flight. For such is the import of the expressions, let not him who is on the housetop enter into the house, let not him who is in the field turn back, that is, lest, by attempting to save their property, they themselves perish. Again, woe to the women with child, and to them that give suck, for they will not be in a fit condition for flight. Again, pray that your flight may not be in the winter, that is, that neither a regard to the sacredness of the day, nor the roughness of the roads, nor the shortness of the clays, may prevent or retard your flight. The design of Christ therefore was, first, to arouse his followers, that they might no longer indulge the hope of ease and repose, and the enjoyments of an earthly kingdom, and, secondly, to fortify their minds, that they might not give way under ordinary calamities. Such an admonition, no doubt, was far from being agreeable, but, in consequence of their stupidity, and the great weight of the calamities, it was highly necessary.